Every great love story begins with a choice. For Elise, it was choosing silence over truth. For James, it was choosing duty over desire. 3 years ago, Elise vanished from James's life without warning, just one tear-stained letter and a ring left on his pillow. Now, fate forces them back together under the harsh lights of a courtroom, where he's the lawyer assigned to destroy the very company she's trying to save. But beneath every cross-examination and every cold stare, something else brews. Unspoken regrets. Hidden betrayals. A love neither of them ever truly escaped. When lies unravel and forgotten truths come to light, will they finally face what tore them apart or destroy each other all over again? New York City. Present day. James Ashford had built his name by tearing people apart methodically, elegantly, and always with a smile. In the courtroom, he was infamous. The kind of man who didn't blink while destroying multi-billion-dollar conglomerates or ruthless CEOs. He was also the youngest senior partner in his firm's history. A man made of suits, secrets, and steel. So when the case file dropped on his desk, he didn't flinch until he read the name at the top. Elise Harper. The name hit him like cold water to the face. And yet, he kept reading. Harper Industries. A mid-sized green tech startup on the verge of collapse. Accused of financial misreporting. CEO, Elise Harper. His Elise. No, not anymore. He stared at the black and white photo clipped inside the file. She looked older now, more tired, her eyes shadowed with something he couldn't name. But she was still beautiful. Beautiful in the way that made the rest of the room fade. 3 years. No explanation. No contact. Just a letter with 6 words, "Don't look for me. I'm sorry." He had looked, of course. Hired a private investigator. Drank through nights. Fought through months. And eventually he buried it all. Buried her. But now, fate, it seemed, had other plans. Elise sat in her office, staring at the letter from the court. The Ashford coal insignia was burned into the header. Lead counsel, James Ashford. She felt her throat tighten, her fingers tremble. So this was how the past returned, dressed in $1,000 suits and court subpoenas. She wanted to scream. Not because she was afraid of losing the case, though she very well could, but because she wasn't ready to see him again. Not like this. Not across enemy lines. Elise had spent the last 3 years building something out of nothing. A business. A purpose. A life without James. She had told herself she'd done the right thing. That leaving was necessary. That he'd be better off. But the ache in her chest said otherwise. Now, the man she had left behind would be the one to break her. The first courtroom meeting was merciless. James walked in like war itself, confident, polished, unreadable. Elise wore navy blue, her hair tied up like armor. Their eyes met across the room, and the air shifted. Neither smiled. The judge began, but the tension between them was louder than any gavel. Elise Harper, James's voice finally rang out. Cold. Controlled. You're accused of falsifying quarterly revenue to secure investor capital in Q3 of the previous fiscal year. How do you plead? She could barely breathe. Not guilty. James didn't blink. We'll see. She hated him in that moment. Hated how distant he was. How professionally cruel. But somewhere beneath that, she hated herself more for still caring what he thought. 2 weeks passed. The trial intensified. Headlines swarmed. Elise was dragged through every possible media outlet. Investors pulled back. Employees walked out. Her world was crumbling. But James. He remained a ghost in a suit, sharp, strategic, merciless. and somehow watching her unravel. She wondered, was this revenge? And then one night, after a brutal court day, she returned to her apartment and found the ring the same one she had left him on her kitchen counter. No note. No explanation. Just the past, haunting her countertop. Flashback 3 years ago. I got the London offer, James had said, his voice hesitant. Elise stared at him. You're taking it. His silence was answer enough. You promised, she whispered. You said this was home. He had looked torn, truly torn, but ambition had always been louder than promises. I thought you'd come with me. I have a life here, she said. My father just passed. I'm not ready to leave everything. But I need this, he said. Just a year. Then we come back stronger. But Elise had seen it in his eyes. He wasn't coming back. So she left first. Present day. James sat in his penthouse suite, staring at the city. The trial was nearing its climax. His team had found a witness willing to testify against Elise. Someone from her finance department, anonymous, scared. He could win. He could actually destroy everything she had left. But the ring, he hadn't meant to return it. Hadn't even realized he still carried it. Some part of him wanted her to feel what he felt, that sharp stab of memory. That ache of what never got said. What would it change now? His phone rang. It was Claire, the witness. She wants to talk, Claire said. She says she lied. She was paid to fake the numbers. Someone inside the board. I have proof. James stood. The pieces shifted in his mind. Could Elise be innocent? The next day, he requested a private meeting with Elise. In a silent room inside the courthouse, she faced him. No suits. No witnesses. Just the two of them. You're not guilty, James said quietly. She looked up, startled. He tossed a file onto the table. Someone framed you. I know who. She stared at the folder, then back at him. Why are you helping me? His jaw clenched. Because despite everything, I never stopped. He stopped himself. You don't owe me anything, she whispered. I don't care. Her eyes brimmed. Then why did you come after me like that? You could have buried me. He leaned forward, voice soft now. Because I thought you buried us first. As Elise opened the folder, something fell out. A photo. Her. And Daniel Wolfe, Ashford Cole's top rival, and the man who once tried to poach James's biggest case. Taken 3 years ago. Her hand in Daniel's. At a dinner. James's voice turned cold. Tell me you weren't with him back then. Her silence was deafening. And then tears. I wasn't. But someone wanted you to think I was. She looked up, voice shaking. James, someone set this up. You. Me. The company. This was never about fraud. It was about revenge. His face darkened. Who? She took a deep breath. My mother's second husband, your father's client. Silence. Then James's voice, low and dangerous. You're saying my father's law firm did this? She nodded. And just like that, the real war began. 4 years earlier. The last time Elise Harper walked into the Ashford Cole building, it had been to surprise James. She had brought takeout, 2 chilled bottles of Riesling, and a folder with her startup's first angel investor contract. It was a Friday evening, cold, sparkling with snow, and she'd been wearing his favorite coat. She remembered how happy she was, how full of hope. But the man she found in the office that night wasn't James. It was Richard Langford, her mother's third husband. a senior partner at Ashford. And sitting beside him, smiling like a shadow in a three-piece suit, was Daniel Wolfe. She'd walked into a meeting she was never meant to see. And now, 4 years later, all the pieces were starting to fall into place. Present day. James paced the width of his penthouse living room like a man stalking ghosts. Elise's words echoed in his mind. Your father's client. She had meant Richard Langford. The man his late father mentored. The man who, after his father's heart attack, became the de facto head of Ashford Coal's empire. James always thought of him as a harmless dinosaur, obsessed with country clubs and cigars. But now Elise was saying he framed her. That this entire case was orchestrated to burn her down, just to settle an old debt or personal vendetta. It didn't make sense. Not yet. But James had a gnawing feeling in his chest. One he hadn't felt since he was a boy. Doubt. Meanwhile, Elise sat alone in the Harper Industries conference room, staring at her reflection in the glass wall. She looked like a survivor. But she felt like a fraud. James believed her now, or at least, wanted to. That was more than she expected. Yet part of her couldn't forget the way he had looked at that photo of her and Daniel Wolfe, his jaw tight, his eyes distant. Trust, once cracked, never returned in the same shape. And she knew this went deeper than a corporate takedown. Deeper than a bad breakup. Someone had been watching her for years. Controlling things behind the scenes. Pulling strings she never saw. And it all traced back to Langford. Her mother had married him when Elise was 19. He was polite, rich, always smiling. But he was also possessive, cold, and strategic. He never raised his voice he didn't need to. One call from him could ruin a man's credit, job, or social life. And now, it seemed, he had ruined her too. James confronted Langford the next morning. Inside the Ashford Coal Library, the air was thick with expensive bourbon and old wood. Langford sat like a king, wearing a silk tie and an unreadable expression. James dropped a thick folder on the table. You know what that is. Langford didn't flinch. Should I? It's a full statement from Claire Yamada, Elise's former finance associate. She names 2 board members who paid her to fake the quarterly reports. One of them is from our client list. Your client list? Langford arched a brow. That's quite an accusation. She says the orders came from someone connected to both Harper Industries and our firm. Coincidences happen. James leaned forward. Then explain this. He slid over the photo of Elise and Daniel Wolfe. The same one someone had anonymously mailed to his apartment 3 years ago, days before Elise left him. Langford smiled faintly. Ah. That old thing. She really did a number on you, didn't she? James's blood ran cold. You sent that? Langford sipped his drink. I did what was necessary to protect our firm's future. You were young. Naive. She would have dragged you into her mess. James's voice dropped to a near whisper. You mean her company's success threatened your client's monopoly? So you sabotaged her and made sure I hated her while you were at it. Langford's smile widened. And you fell for it. Back at Harper Industries, Elise was staring at a news alert. Ashford Coal internal scandal rumored to emerge amidst Harper trial. The blogs were catching wind. Investors were rattled. The court date was now 2 days away. She was still under charges. And worse, someone had leaked her entire company's finances online. Why now? She whispered to herself. That's when her assistant, Priya, walked in face pale. You need to see this. She handed Elise a tablet. A video. Low quality. Grainy. Surveillance footage. It was her. Inside a private room at the last board meeting, arguing with Daniel Wolf. He was yelling. She was crying. Then came the audio overlay, edited, chopped, and stitched together to make it seem like she admitted guilt. A deep fake. Where did this come from? Elise asked. Anonymous tip. Sent to 5 major outlets. James received the same video 30 minutes later. And unlike the media, he had the original copy of the meeting from Discovery. When he compared the waveforms, the lie was clear. Someone had manufactured her confession. They were desperate now. Whoever was behind this new James was backing off, and they were moving fast to bury Elise before she could breathe. He picked up his phone and called his private investigator. I need everything you can find on Langford's offshore dealings. Look into shell corporations. Start with Cayman and Singapore. He hung up and stared out the window, the city glowing like fireflies. Then he called Elise. Come to my place. Now. When she arrived, she looked like she hadn't slept. James handed her a drink. You're being hunted. She didn't laugh. Tell me something I don't know. I confronted Langford. He all but confessed. Her eyes widened. But here's the part you don't know: he's been laundering money through Harper Industries stock derivatives. Using your company's name to wash millions through shell firms. That's what this is about. You're the smokescreen. She felt the floor tilt beneath her. So, I'm not the target. James nodded. You're the cover. And now that you're resisting, they're rushing to burn you before the court date. Her voice cracked. James, I can't fight this. I don't have the resources. He looked at her, really looked, and said something she never expected. Then let me fight for you. That night, something changed. They didn't kiss. They didn't cry. They just sat on his rooftop, staring at the skyline, letting the silence say everything. And then Elise whispered, I wanted to stay. That night. When you got the London offer. James didn't respond. I thought I had to let you go so you wouldn't have to choose. He closed his eyes. You were the only thing I ever wanted to choose. Her voice broke. Then why didn't you? And for the first time, he told the truth. Because I didn't believe I deserved you. The next morning, the courtroom was full. But this time, the defense table looked different. James Ashford now sat beside Elise Harper. Reporters whispered. The judge raised an eyebrow. Opposing counsel Langford's proxy looked like he'd swallowed glass. And when James stood to present new evidence, bank records, witness testimony, video metadata proving the confession was doctored, everything turned. By noon, the prosecution's case was falling apart. And by 4 p.m., the judge ordered a formal investigation into Langford and several unnamed parties. Elise wasn't just cleared. She became a whistleblower. As they exited the courtroom, cameras flashed. James held Elise's hand, guiding her past the chaos. But before they could reach the car, a black SUV screeched to a stop across the street. A man stepped out. Daniel Wolf. He locked eyes with James. Then Elise. And smiled. I warned you both, he said. Then tossed a flash drive at Elise's feet. Enjoy the encore. The SUV sped off. James picked up the drive. Inserted it into his laptop once they were inside the car. One video file. It was Langford. Sitting with a woman. Elise's mother. Plotting. And then her mother's voice, make sure she never gets close to him again. Elise stared at the screen in shock. Her voice cracked. She was behind it from the start. 2 days later. Elise had always thought betrayal would come from strangers. She never imagined it would come from her mother. But now she had heard the truth with her own ears on a video recording captured from years ago. Her mother's voice, calm and calculated, "James is a distraction. Elise will never reach her potential if she stays in his shadow. I want her convinced he's not right for her." Langford had nodded, sealing an unholy alliance in emotional ambush dressed as tough love. Elise sat motionless in James's apartment, replaying the moment again and again. The more she heard it, the harder it was to deny. This wasn't just about a breakup. This was a long-planned manipulation to control her future and kill any chance at the one thing she truly wanted, love that didn't require sacrifice. James stood silently nearby, watching her with a mix of sorrow and restraint. He could tell she was unraveling inside. But she didn't cry. She didn't even speak. Until, finally, she turned toward him and said, "Do you still have the letter?" He nodded. Folded. Worn. "I read it more times than I care to admit." "I didn't know about her involvement back then," Elise whispered. "But I did leave. I thought I was protecting you. And I thought you stopped loving me," he said quietly. She looked down. "I never did." The next morning, Elise walked into Harper Industries' glass-walled boardroom like a woman on a mission. Her mother was already there, dressed immaculately as always. Poised. Cool. "Elise," she greeted with that practiced smile. "You've been through quite the mess. I'm glad it's behind you now." Elise didn't sit. "You manipulated Langford. Orchestrated false reports. Sent that photo to James. You wanted me broken." Her mother remained still. "I wanted you independent." "No, you wanted me obedient," Elise replied, voice steady. "You wanted me to build the life you wanted. Even if it cost me everything." "Elise," her mother said calmly, "James was never going to put you first." "He already has," Elise replied. "Again and again. Even when I didn't deserve it." At that moment, the door opened. James stepped in. Alongside him was a federal investigator. "Elise Harper," the agent said, "you're cleared of all charges. And we've launched a full inquiry into financial misconduct involving Richard Langford and Caroline Langford." Her mother blinked. "You're having your own mother investigated?" "I'm having a corrupt executive investigated," Elise corrected. "Blood doesn't excuse betrayal." Langford was arrested later that afternoon. Evidence traced his illegal trades through shell companies tied to Harper Industries. The Ashford coal law firm dissolved ties, and internal reviews began. James submitted his resignation and walked away from the firm his family helped build. "You're really leaving all that behind?" Elise asked. "I'm not walking away," he said. "I'm choosing something better." She didn't ask what. She already knew. 1 week later. They stood together on the rooftop of a villa in Florence, Italy. The golden evening light washed over the tiled roofs, and a warm breeze moved through Elise's hair. They weren't discussing stocks or lawsuits. They weren't planning a press release. They were just two people who found each other again. James turned toward her. "I still have the ring," he said softly. Elise reached for his hand. "I still have the letter." He smiled. "What would you write now?" She stepped closer. "I'd write, 'Thank you, for not letting go.'" And this time, there were no misunderstandings, no running, no fear. They kissed not like the first time, or the goodbye, but like a beginning. Epilogue 1 year later. Harper Ashford Strategic Advisory launched quietly, without fanfare. It wasn't a law firm. It wasn't a tech company. It was a new kind of venture built by two people who survived betrayal, ambition, silence, and love, and chose each other.